Ah, how could we ever forget about some of the most iconic teenage movies that helped define not only the teenage film genre, but also the 1980s. The mastermind behind all these films was writer-director John Hughes. John Hughes understood what it was like to be a kid. He understood the struggles and frustrations that the youth faced, and he addressed these struggles in his films. His movies sought to inspire the youth not only of the era, but of future generations to come. In this video essay, we're going to analyze the tropes found in Hughes' teenage films: 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, Weird Science, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Particularly, we're going to analyze the direct and indirect addressing of the audience and the classic freeze-frame ending. Now, some of you will argue that I am missing a very important Hughes film, Pretty in Pink. While Hughes did write the screenplay, the film was actually directed by Howard Deutch, not by John Hughes, so it doesn't count towards this analysis. We'll begin with the freeze-frame ending, which is apparent in all 4 of Hughes' films. But first we'll discuss the origins of the freeze-frame. The freeze-frame ending first appeared in the 1959 French New Wave film The 400 Blows, directed by François Truffaut. The film tells the story of a young boy, Antoine, who takes into a life of petty crime due to the lack of attention from his parents.
Il m'a chargé de te faire savoir qu'il se désintéresse complètement de ton sort désormais.
Hughes touches upon similar concepts in his films.
What did they do to you?
They ignore me.
Throughout the film, Antoine mentions how he has always dreamed of going to the beach. At the end of the film, after going through a mischievous journey, Antoine reaches his goal, making it to the beach. The film ends immediately afterwards with a freeze frame of Antoine staring directly into the camera. According to James Monaco, Truffaut's landmark freeze frame brings the 400 Blows to an abrupt and quizzical stop. Many film historians debate on the purpose of the freeze frame ending, whether it provides closure for the narrative or if it holds any significant story meaning. But, in an interview with Truffaut, when asked about his intentions regarding the freeze frame, he replied, "The final freeze was simply an accident. I told Liu to look into the camera. He did, but quickly turned his eyes away. Since I wanted that brief look he gave me the moment before he turned, I had no choice but to hold on to it. Hence, the freeze." Although Truffaut stumbled upon the freeze frame on accident, it serves to encapsulate the story and fit it into a contained space and time. This is exactly what Hughes does with his freeze-frame ending. Hughes' freeze-frame ending is meant to capture a joyful and memorable tone. This is further supported by the uplifting music that accompanies the ending.
Sincerely yours, The Breakfast Club.
Hughes is fully aware of the tone and mood that each song brings to his films.
Simple Minds worked for The Breakfast Club. In the context of the film, if you never bought the record, you know, we didn't put the song in there to sell records. Put the song in there because it was a part of the movie. It was you couldn't take that song out of the movie, and couldn't take the movie out of the song.
Every song Hughes puts in his films carries a purpose in regards to the context and theme of the film. Furthermore, Hughes' films all follow the generic Hollywood happy ending. Hughes purposely accompanies his happy endings with uplifting music as a way to inspire and instill hope in his youthful audience. His films are meant to express the teenage essence and spirit, and with the freeze-frame ending, he is able to achieve that by capturing memorable and unforgettable moments that many teens encounter at some point in their lifetime. The freeze-frame endings capture a moment of pure bliss. Like Monaco mentioned with The 400 Blows, the freeze frame brings a film to an abrupt and quizzical stop. It provides closure for the film. In his final film, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Hughes even plays off this notion of providing closure in the after-credits scene where Ferris directly tells the audience that the film is over and that they should go home.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
Furthermore, since the freeze frame is serving as an abrupt and quizzical stop, it's addressing the audience as it gives them a moment to digest the film. It's quizzical in the sense that the audience is given time to reflect the themes of the films with their own lives. Throughout his films, Hughes addresses his audience both with direct and indirect methods. In The Breakfast Club, Hughes indirectly addresses his audience with a quote that is embedded at the very beginning of the film. "And these children that you spit on as they try to change their worlds are immune to your consultations. They're quite aware of what they're going through." David Bowie. Right off the bat, Hughes sets the tone and mood of the film. Bowie was aware of what the youth audience was going through, and by including the quote, Hughes too claims that he's aware. The quote serves to increase Hughes' credibility, and it serves as a means for Hughes to reach out to his audience. In his two later films, Weird Science and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Hughes addresses his audience via the breaking of the fourth wall. However, it's not solely the breaking of the fourth wall that directly addresses the audience. Hughes uses what Marita Sturken and Lisa Cartwright consider the gaze. In Hughes' films, the gaze occurs when a character addresses the audience by looking directly into the camera. The gaze, just like the freeze frame, originates in the film The 400 Blows. While the freeze frame was accidental, the gaze was not, and the ending of the film with the gaze was definitely planned. According to Sturken and Cartwright, theories of the gaze are theories of address, and when studying address, we have to consider the ways an image or visual text invites certain responses from a particular category of viewer, such as a male or a female viewer. It's a method in which the audience can be addressed visually without being taken away from the story or narrative. There are two gazes that appear in Weird Science. The first gaze happens early in the film in this scene.
That is a severe behavioral disorder. Those are women's underpants. I mean, the next thing you know, you'll be wearing a bra on your head.
The gaze is a humorous and subtle breaking of the fourth wall, but it establishes that Hughes acknowledges the audience. This acknowledgement is further enhanced at the end of the film, where the female protagonist Lisa gazes and gives a wink directly at the audience. Now, on to Ferris Bueller's Day Off. The whole movie is practically based on the gaze and the breaking of the fourth wall. All throughout the film, Ferris gazes straight into the camera when he acknowledges the audience. This gaze gives him, but more importantly, it gives Hughes power over the audience. Sturken and Cartwright argue that when watching a film, the viewer undergoes a temporary loss of ego as he or she identifies with the powerful position of apprehending bodies on the screen. This powerful position is held by Ferris. The fact that he gazes directly to the audience further expands his power and credibility. While he does speak his mind when addressing the audience, Ferris also has a tendency to give his own advice. With the power of the gaze, the audience is more susceptible to listen to Ferris's words. The movie ends with a freeze frame of Ferris staring straight into the camera. The gaze gives Ferris, Hughes, and the film's theme power over the audience. The whole theme of the movie is even mentioned by Ferris right before the film ends.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
The power that Hughes holds over the audience is to reinforce that theme. He's telling his audience to enjoy life from time to time, that it's okay to take the day off from your routine life. And with the freeze frame ending, Hughes gives his audience time to fully reflect on the theme of the film. It all comes back full circle in the end. In its simplest terms, in the most convenient definitions, the addressing of the audience is the way John Hughes reaches out to his viewers. It gives him credibility as he acknowledges the teens that are quite aware of what they're going through. It enhances his ethical appeal as a filmmaker and a storyteller. Ultimately, Hughes' film techniques come together beautifully to tell contemporary stories of the teenage life and the struggles with the coming of age. His style of film and the techniques that came with it all bridge together the relationship between teenagers and adults that seem to have corroded over time. Overall, John Hughes was more than just an 80s cinema icon. He was an inspiration for classic American teenage cinema.